Hello everyone and all the people who are translating and organizing, helping this event with Sakya Friends. We have the very good opportunity to become familiarized with the meaning of the Bodhisattva vows. We had a session already yesterday, during which we introduce some key factors of how to guard the bodhicitta, the aspirational bodhicitta. And so today we're going to continue talk about the root vows. Out of the 18 root vows, that we already discussed the first 8, and tonight we will elaborate of the remaining 10 root vows. We spoke about the Maitreya's analogies, 22 analogies of the bodhicitta practice. Bodhicitta is a vow of altruism, in order that one does not forget the vow. One need to find ways to remember them as frequently as possible. And therefore, Maitreya and Asanga, in their writings, in the very famous Mahayana Buddhist text called the Ornament to the Mahayana Sutras, he made so that one remembers the Bodhisattva vows and qualities of bodhicitta with the 22 analogies. So, as bodhicitta is divided into relative bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, and the relative bodhicitta is divided into wishing bodhicitta or aspirational bodhicitta and the engaging bodhicitta. The 22 analogies applies to these wishing aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. When a Mahayana aspirant enters the path and takes on the bodhisattva vows, taking on the bodhisattva vows is deliberately acknowledging the virtue and merit and advantage of embracing bodhicitta, and as a remedy to get rid of the selfish citta, the self-centeredness and egocentric mind, which has and is still the cause of all the sufferings, major and minor, obvious and hidden, physical to mental sufferings, are all caused by the selfishness. So because the selfishness is the cause of the suffering, one has to learn how to abstain selfishness, and one should therefore replace altruism with the altruism should replace the selfishness. For example, it's like a person whose life has been ruined by alcoholism. Then he has to renounce alcohol and make a vow not to take any alcohol. Instead, he should invest his time, energy doing something completely different, so that he is distancing and abstaining from the habit of drinking alcohol. So, of course, alcohol is something that is in the bottle. So, if you don't touch the bottle and drink what's in the bottle, of course, you are able to abstain. But selfishness is not in a bottle, selfishness is so difficult to detect and recognize. And so therefore selfishness is harder to recognize as the cause of one's ruin and downfalls. So a bodhisattva is called courageous. Bodhisattva is courageous one to take on this fight against this selfishness. And so in order that he remain very fit and sound to be able to counteract selfishness, he has to don on the uniform of a warrior. Soldiers go and put on the soldier's uniform and put the armor and all of that. Like that, a bodhisattva is a spiritual warrior. We call bodhisattva. It means a warrior of the enlightened ones. Soldier of peace, you can call it. Soldier peace. So, but there is no actual physical uniform the bodhisattvas wear, but they need to be armored by the bodhicitta vows. They have to always remember to wear the bodhicitta attitude. And so that's why, like yesterday, we talked about the importance of reviewing and renewing the bodhisattva vows 6 times each day. So if one is able to review the vows 6 times each day and remembers what each of them are and recognize them one by one and be cautious whether or not one is at the verge of committing a downfall or not, because the downfall means transgression of a vow has two. It can constitute either a complete downfall or an incomplete downfall. So in order to prevent any form of downfall, one needs to have the wish to not to cause any downfall. In order to keep up the wish not to cause any downfall, one needs to engage in guarding the wish by reviewing the vows at least 6 times a day. And so those who are familiar with the root bodhisattva, 18 root vows and 46 secondary vows. When we say root and secondary vows are not secondary, but elaboration of the root vows. So when we go over each of the 18 root vows, it actually gives an overall vows, what under the 18. And then when we go through the 46, then there are breakdown of each of the vows pertaining to each of the 6 paramitas. The 6 paramitas are engaging bodhicitta. The wishing bodhicitta, which we talked about, take on 3 of the 22 analogies. And so they are the very intention of bodhicitta is likened to earth, and the quality of the bodhicitta should be like that of a gold. So it's not sort of Gold is a very precious metal that doesn't rust, that doesn't lose its color or quality, even under the soil or water or whatever. It can retain its beauty. Likewise, a bodhisattva who is keeping his the aspirational vow will not be tarnishable by hardships and difficulties. He doesn't give up on any sentient beings. Why? Because he has made a vow not to give up on any sentient beings. Instead, he has made a vow to follow the noble examples of past Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, how they first learned, then developed, and finally practiced the six paramitas. The overall analogy for all the six paramita as engaging bodhicitta is possible once you have the intention that is like a earth, like a solid, firm aspiration, and the quality of which do not tarnish, like the gold, and as it goes from practice from day to day, it is waxing, it is increasing, it is not sort of decreasing, but it is increasing the radiance of the practice of bodhicitta. So, and then the fourth analogy is the fire. So that's the fourth analogy. Fire is analogy for all the remaining engaging bodhisattvas activities. All the six paramitas should be engaged. There shouldn't be any one action that is deprived of these six paramitas. This engagement of the six paramitas in your everyday life, such as giving, the discipline, being patient, and having enthusiasm, having good mindfulness, meditative concentration, and wisdom, these six should be applied like a fire. The fire does not hesitate to burn anything. It will incinerate, whether it's wood or tin or concrete, or not to mention more combustible material like a dry wood or material like that. But even not so dry tinder will be affected and burned and incinerated by the fire. So a bodhisattva makes a vow to be like someone who set all his sufferings, all the antithesis of six paramitas into fire. So he is there to incinerate, burn for instance, burn all the miserliness. And if you want to practice generosity, you have to first burn the miserliness. You have to burn the tendency to procrastinate miserliness. You will burn the idea that you are practicing generosity only with object attachment. You're only attached to the object and therefore you are generous. So object-specific attachment should be incinerated. And then motivation, thinking if I'm generous, then they will love me, they will respect me, I will be regarded highly. If one having those intentions also should be incinerated by the fire of the application of generosity. So when we discussed yesterday about the fire as an analogy for engaging bodhicitta, we must think in relation to all the six paramitas. And when one practices, for instance, generosity, there are many impure generosities. Impure in relation to the object to whom we attach to. If we are generous to object out of attachment, then that generosity will not be perfect generosity, because it is tainted by attachment to the object. If we are if the generosity is made impure by one's motivation, so that one will be loved or respected, or so that one will be reborn in a good life in the future, or people will think highly of me, people will praise me, you love people thinking that you are generous. If one's intention is attachment to oneself from the reward of practicing generosity, then that is antithesis. So therefore, fire-like application of the generosity should burn not only miserliness, but attachment to the reward and complacency and the like. So likewise, this practice of moral discipline, so self-discipline, any practice of self-discipline one does. So the fire of the application of discipline should be such that one's practice of discipline actually firstly destroys all lack of discipline. First, one destroys all lack of discipline. Secondly, even if one does practice some discipline, one incinerates the self-righteous discipline and all competitive discipline, seeing one is practicing self-discipline in order to compete with equals, in order to feel that you are more pious than others. Even if one observe all the vows, Patimoksha vows, monastic vows, Bodhisattva vows, if one is thinking that I'm better than the others, and then have arrogance, and then judge others, treat others with contempt, and then jealous with equals, arrogance with the inferior, and condescending with the superior, all these kind of impediments has to be incinerated by the fire, like application of one's discipline. So we need to therefore remember, firstly, the fourth analogy as the fire should be applied with all the paramitas. For instance, with patience. The antithesis of patience is anger and frustration and impatience. All of this has to be burned like a fuel by the fire of application of the practice of the patience. So also the patience that one practices, one shouldn't think, oh, this will be the only time I'll practice patience, I won't practice anymore, thinking that one's practice of patience is adequate, and then thinking that one will no longer practice patience after this. If one does that, that is also complacency. So therefore, one should learn to not become small-minded, mean-minded in one's practice of patience. So all the paramitas has to be also intersected. Intersected meaning that there must be generosity, should have discipline, and the generosity should have patience, generosity should have diligence, generosity have to have concentration, and generosity should have also wisdom. So that's intersecting generosity with other five paramitas. Likewise, discipline should also be intersected with other paramitas. So if this intersection between six paramitas happens, this means that one has a more likelihood of being able to apply the six paramitas like a fire. Fire will destroy everything on its way, isn't it? Your practice of generosity should destroy everything on as a hindrance in your practicing generosity. For instance, if one used to give things to people, somewhat whatever one doesn't need. But giving what one doesn't need to other people is not generosity. Giving what one to others what one doesn't need is getting rid of things, So actually, one needs to learn to give things one would dare not to use even for oneself. If one is able to give such things to other people, that you will usually do not give it to anybody, but you give it to the person, because of you are able to burn with the fire of generosity your own attachment to the things you are going to keep for yourself, thus keeping nothing for oneself and giving for the sake of others. This kind of application is the fourth analogy. So I'm giving this to elaborate a little bit before we move on for the remaining of the 10 vows. The reason for that is because if you understand these analogies for the earth and gold and moon are the analogy of the wishing aspirational bodhicitta's vows, and then all the engaging bodhicitta's vows are collectively should be like the application of the fire. They should be engaged like a fire. So all the 6 paramita practices, the vows pertaining to each of the paramitas, should have these 4 in place. These first 4 analogies should be remembered in order that one does not forget. How to practice adhere to the Bodhisattva vows. And so we discussed yesterday the first 8 vows of the vows in relation to the engaging bodhicitta. So now we're going to talk about from the vow number 9, because vow number before we go to go through the list of the 9 to 18, if you have the bottom of that part is we have the it says that except for vows 9 and 18, 4 conditions are required to transgress completely the 4 major vows. So completely the major vows. So these 4 points should be brought in order to take into consideration, because it says with the exception of 9 and 18 means all the first 8 vows which we discuss. In order for these to occur, complete transgression, says that knowing that one is breaking a vow, but not caring because one lacks faith in the karma. So when the practitioner becomes very, very deluded and agitated, he knows he's breaking the vow, but he doesn't care. And why? Because he lost faith in the law of karma. And then he thinks that doing negative things does not matter. He does not care. So there is that degree of carelessness and disrespectfulness. These 2 are very obvious, yeah? So the cause of breaking vows has to be intentional. Cause of keeping the vows also have to be, therefore, have to be intentional. So the vow is to keep the intention going. Then if the intention is contrary, it is intentionally breaking the vows, disrespecting them, carelessly and condescendingly. One just doesn't care. Also, so therefore, due to carelessness and due to disrespectfulness, and the third is due to ignorance. Also due to ignorance, one doesn't realize one may not think the action is negative. They say there's nothing negative about it. What I do is completely fine. Top there, a person denies his action being negative, let alone transgressing his vows, and therefore he acts very contrary to the very vow. For instance, the first vow of if one's praising for oneself. One thinks the praising for oneself is quite warranted. One thinks that it doesn't break the vow. One is therefore not caring about it, and one thinks that praising oneself is not negative, but is quite legitimate, and therefore one is exaggeratingly praising oneself. If one does that, or one belittles others, one blatantly belittle means to degenerate, disparage somebody, yeah? Disparage somebody, and even though disparaging somebody is a blatant breaking of the vows, but he does not care, and therefore he does not think it is negative. He thinks he's not breaking the vows. He thinks it's a good, and also he does not think this action is negative, and therefore he doesn't know that his conduct of disparaging others, spreading rumors of other people, speaking bad things behind people's back, he thinks this is not contrary to his vows. He thinks that faults of others should be pointed out, as if that's going to end the world's problem. They call whistleblowers. And so that is one of the conditions. Yeah. So one needs to be very wary of that. And but if the person knows that belittling others is negative, and then he recognizes that, then of course, even though some of his action is a little questionable, but it doesn't become complete transgression. So complete transgression. So that I gave that example with the first one, or if we look at the second one, not giving material aid, not teaching Dharma. So like that, those, if in that case also, if one is not giving food or cloth or medicine or something, if people ask, if one is not caring, one is not giving, and one doesn't care about not giving, because one doesn't care, and one does not think it's a negative, and therefore, if person continue to ignore practicing giving, but he is not giving, but instead he refused to give. So you can look at each of these 8 vows we discussed last night, because all those 8 vows are pertaining these 4. Like the second one is wishing to act like this in the future. Yeah, one has not only transgressed any of the vows, with the exception of 9 and 18. So from 1 to 8, and then the 10 to 17. All of those, one is acting. One has done not only has transgressed the vows, but one still wish to act that in the future. One wouldn't hesitate criticizing other people, or praising oneself, or belittling others. One not only has done that before, but one doesn't realize that how negative it is, but one still wish to do in the future. They almost threat that they will do it again. Even after doing non-virtuous action, one still have every intention to do it again, in ever readiness to do that again, as if what one is doing has some amazing things. So that shows the person is both disrespectful, carelessness, and ignorance, and maybe profoundly deluded. So when a person is acting on that, under these conditions, then he transgressed the vows. But if a person then came to know after committing few mistakes, then he thinks, oh, I shouldn't do this again in the future. This is ridiculous. I'm so bad that I did this in the past. I should not do this again. And then he restrains it. Then it is not a complete transgression. Complete transgression. Now, this is like a person who feels strong regret of past transgression or transgression of vows, or for that matter any wrongdoings. Then the person will be freed from recommitting negative deeds in the future, because he vows not to do them in the future. He remorsefully apologizes or confession of the wrongdoing in the past. And that's why Nagarjuna says that he who has been previously heedless, but then later on promises to become heedful, will be like the cloud, like the moon that has been obscured by the cloud, will soon be very bright and shiny once the cloud has moved. Just as Angulimala and so on. He gave four stories. The first story is about Angulimala. Angulimala's story is Anguli means fingers, Mala means garland. He's wearing fingers as garlands. Angulimala's story needs to be understood. Then we will know that no matter how many heavy misdeeds one has committed in the past, heedlessly, and then later on come to realize, I should stop this, I should instead do something else to counteract this and not do it again, then he also became Arhat. Even though Angulimala killed nearly 1,000 people. And unfortunately, Angulimala's story is little complex, but I can just share with you. For those who are new, of course, this will be completely a new story. It's a very famous Buddhist story. It's found in the sutras. Those of you who have heard before, maybe you haven't heard the full story. You may have heard a little bit about it, but here it goes. Angulimala was born in a very good Indian family, and he was born with amazing signs and good dreams for the mother. And when they consulted the soothsayers and astrologers, they said, this boy will become very, very famous, special in the future. He was very good looking, he was very intelligent, he was very athletic, and he was very strong and very likable. And it is said that he was given the name Ahimsaka. Ahimsaka means non-violent one, non-violent one. Because as he was born, his mother's many of her sorrows were allayed, and she was very delighted. She was freed from the sorrow of course, prenatal as well as other depressions in her life. As the arrival of this son took away all her sorrows, and therefore many of her sufferings were allayed. Therefore, they gave him the name Ahimsaka. Ahimsaka, because um, the people who recommended the name said if they give the name, then he will not do any harm to others. So sometimes very prayer, some for wish fulfill, wish something very in order to fulfill their wishes. They didn't want him to be violent, and mother's sorrows were laid, and so there is a good reason to give that name. Anyway, so the parents were very eager to have him educated under a very learned master, a Brahmin. This is, of course, in India, and so and he was therefore given to study with his Brahmin teacher. His Brahmin teacher taught him amazingly, but his student Ahimsaka was so intelligent, so studious. His manners were good. He was very polite. He was very top of the class. He was not only smart, intelligent, but very diligent, but very quick. And he came out on top of the class. And as a result of this, many of his classmates was very jealous, very jealous, and then many of his jealous classmates tried to conspire against Ahimsaka in order to cause some kind of misunderstanding between Ahimsaka and his teacher. Because Ahimsaka, like in those days, when the students are accepted by the master, the student stays at the master's home, and they serve the master, they clean the house, and they do the washing, they do the fetching of the water and the wood and fuel. They do all house chore duties, even if the master has his own families. And so this was a part of the kind of student-teacher relationship. The student had to do all of that. And he was doing those chores very well on top of his very amazing academic performance, to which all of his classmates were very jealous. So many of his friends told many lies to the teacher about Ahimsaka, and Ahimsaka was so impressive in his academic work and his study and his dutifulness and his diligence and his manner. Teacher thought this was all their jealous, and he didn't listen to him. Listen to them, but it went on and again, because and then one day the teacher became a little bit suspicious, of course, suspicious whether his disciple Ahimsaka was up to something. Because people keep telling this so many times, he's starting to believe. Anyway, one day, when the teacher himself have to go to other towns for a couple of days, and then he asked among his students that who among them will come and stay in his house in order to look after his wife while he is away, so that all her needs are met. While this was happening, the Ahimsaka, being a very diligent student and very good looking and handsome a young man, the teacher's wife was infatuated with this young man. And when the master wanted to select a student to look after her, then his wife asked the husband to appoint Ahimsaka as her attendant, so that she would have an opportunity to live with him so to speak. Anyway, so the teacher therefore asked Ahimsaka to come stay in his home during his absence and to look after his wife uh, as a part of the duty. And then Ahimsaka willingly offered to do the role. And then what happened was then his wife was waiting for an opportunity to seduce this young student while her husband was away. And while Ahimsaka was performing his daily chores, washing and cooking and doing all the sweeping and cleaning, all of these things, his teacher's wife tried to seduce him many times. She was always trying to put on makeup, dressing very and kind of inappropriately, and sending him all kinds of signals. But he never lay his hand on his teacher's wife, knowing it will be completely unacceptable to all. And so he was very good in his behavior. But his teacher's wife was so infatuated and so infuriated because he did not consent to her wishes. Then, when she knew her husband was returning, she deliberately tore her clothes away and have her face all scratched by her own fingernails, made many lacerations into her body, and then she was crying and sobbing when her husband arrived. And when her husband returned, husband asked what happened to her, and then she accused that it is Ahimsaka who tried to rape her, and raped her, and then he has harmed her to this extent. So she put this plot against Ahimsaka because Ahimsaka was very popular. He was doing very well. He was favored disciple of his teacher. She wanted to seduce him. Her intention was to seduce him, but when she didn't succeed in that, then she resented that, and then she wanted to prevent this student staying in the home, and wanted to end him. So when the teacher returned from the trip and discovered what his wife has told him, he believed her everything, and as a result of that, teacher now came to know that previously all his classmates used to make all kinds of they all told lies that a young Ahimsaka was having an affair with his wife, which young Ahimsaka never did, by the way. It was completely, they were just implanting this lie in order to destroy him. And now, in the meantime, unfortunately, it was his wife who was infatuated with the young man. When she didn't succeed to get his consent, and then she used that against him. So all in all, that his teacher was very angry, and he knew that he has to punish Ahimsaka. But his teacher was clever. He thought he was clever, thinking that if I told him and then try to punish him, saying what he has done to his wife, he said this will not be going very well. I should plan something that I can destroy him. So one day the teacher asked Ahimsaka to come to him, and he said, today I have a very special assignment for you. Since you are the most intelligent, diligent, and faithful and amazing student to me, I want you to reach the highest peak of your success in your spiritual and your academic kind of performance. But you have to do this trial if you succeeded. And if you succeeded, then you will become my successor. So in order to do that, he said, you have to go and kill 1,000 people. And not only that, you have to pick one finger from each person and wear that as a garland, and then you have to go and fulfill this and wear this garland of severed fingers on your neck. When you have finished 1,000 killing 1,000 people, then you would have fulfilled all your greatest trials, and you will succeed. Unfortunately, the young Ahimsaka did not think through, but he accepted his teacher's kind of a demand, and he went on, gave up his study and other things, but he then went on and then massacring people, and then he after massacring everyone he met on the roadside, he would pick up one finger and then he will string them together, and he will hang them on the trees, and then he will wear around his neck, and then he earned the name Angulimala. Angulimala, the terrorizer. And anyway, to cut the long story short, he did kill 999 people. He was waiting on the roadside, to the extent of there were nobody who will come and use the roadside because everybody is afraid he will kill. So he ran out of people, and then then when his mother heard that her son has become a mass murderer, killing people and using their fingers as a garland, she couldn't believe her ears, and she went to him and begged her to stop doing this. And then and she asked why he was doing that. He said, I need another person to kill. And she said, if you have to kill another 1,000 person, don't kill another 1,000 person, just cut one of my fingers, and so that will make your mala complete, and you don't have to kill another one. While this was happening, all of a sudden, that's the time when the Shakyamuni Buddha was alive. Then Buddha, through his omniscient mind, came to know that he has to go and now subdue Angulimala. So, and then Buddha Shakyamuni Buddha walked through the path that everybody was slayed and killed. And at that time, and Angulimala saw from the distance a monk coming on the road. While he was on the verge of cutting the finger of his mother, he thought, maybe I don't need to cut the finger of my mother. After all, there is a monk, and I can take his life, and that will complete my task. And so saying, then Angulimala charged. He was very fast, very quick, very strong, and usually nobody would stand a chance to escape or survive. He was so ferocious. And then he ran towards the Buddha. No matter how much he ran, he never got closer to the Buddha. And Buddha was not running. No Buddhas run, by the way. Buddha never runs. Buddha always have a very, very dignified strides when he walked. Wherever he goes, whenever he walks, it's always in that very peaceful, elegant stride. So even though Buddha was walking very slowly and Angulimala was chasing, Angulimala was so near, but he could never get close enough to do anything. And he nearly got exhausted. And while he was chasing, he asked the Buddha, stop, And Buddha was gently walking ahead of him, And Angulimala was chasing and running, but he never got closer. But Buddha heard the Angulimala say, "Stop." And then Buddha replied, "I have stopped long time ago. You stop." So, and then, so that was a very, because already a teaching, Buddha has said, "I have stopped long time ago. You stop." And then Angulimala was a very intelligent man. He said, "What the hell he's talking about?" He said, he's not stopping. He's walking. He said he stopped long time ago, and I'm here to pursue his life. And he says, "You stop." And then he asked, "What do you mean by you have stopped long time ago, and you stop?" And then the Buddha explained, gave a short teaching that I have stopped violence long time ago, and I don't do violence. You are doing violence all this time. You should stop that. As soon as he heard the Buddha's roaring sound of the lion of the Dharma and truth, and straight away a realization came in the mind of Angulimala, to the extent of realizing this is an enlightened one, and he therefore straight away surrendered his weapon and gave up his way and took up the discipleship of the Buddha. And so the moral of this story is about Angulimala regretting his past wrongdoings, and then adopted. He was very violent, by the way. He became very violent. Very violent is called ahimsa. Violent is called himsa, and non-violence is ahimsa. He was given the word non-violent one, ahimsaka, but he actually became violent one. So sometimes name people. It's very difficult to leave the name, don't you think? And so anyway, so he earned the name Angulimala from his deeds, but he, having heard the Buddha speak and teach, completely transformed him and made him to regret his past, and made a vow to drop the violence, and then made a vow to help all the women who are either not able to conceive child, or those who conceive child have suffered miscarriage. So he made a vow that whoever prays to him, because Angulimala become Arhat, remember? And whoever prays to him to have a child, or then he will fulfill their wishes. So Angulimala became a Arhat and a saint, and subsequently he is revered in Sri Lanka and many Theravadan countries, I don't know about other Mahayana countries, as a saint to pray to for women who could not bear a child. And they usually are able to bear a child. So the Angulimala, having confessed his past wrong ways and made a vow to make his sainthood become a cause of happiness to expectant mothers who could not bear a child for whatever reasons, that he was able to fulfill their wishes. So I'm telling this story here because taking Bodhisattva vows is like changing your philosophy of life to not to do selfish things, seeing that is a terrible thing, and taking up the selflessness bodhicitta. So it is in this context that one needs to understand the vows that I'm going to explain constitute these meanings, because that means that we, when we take the Vajrayana empowerment, we always take refuge in Bodhisattva vows. So those of you who have received any empowerment from any teachers and tradition, you already have received Bodhisattva vows. But people weren't explained what the Bodhisattva vows are, and then they don't really know about it very much. So that's why we are deliberately trying to explain what the Bodhisattva vows are, and one needs to know what they are, what one has taken, and also it is indispensable. If you want to receive a deity's initiation, the deity's initiation is only a secondary, but you're always the refuge, and bodhicitta is the most important foundation that becomes indispensable foundation for oneself to have bodhisattva vows and consider them seriously and make sure that one does not ignore them disrespectfully or carelessly or ignorantly, but one deliberately learn to know what they constitute, how best we can guard, how to prevent them from transgression, and so on. So that's why it's no point talking each of the vows what they are, but what we each of us have to think. Oh, I'm going to take up the Bodhisattva vows so as to give up the selfishness, because selfishness is the root cause of many conflicts, interpersonally, individually, to others. So that's why one needs to learn to take up the Bodhisattva vows very, very intently, and therefore be very attentive to what the Bodhisattva vows are. So having said that, now I'm going to go over the actual vows. Yesterday we went up to number 8, and now the number 9 is cultivating or holding wrong views. That's right. The Bodhisattva should not hold wrong views. Bodhisattva should hold the right views, that everything is impermanent, the law of karma is incontrovertible, and one believes in the three jewels: Buddha gem, Dharma gem, Sangha gem, and one therefore believes in law of cause and effect. But if one deliberately hold wrong views and don't believe in the existence of karma and the triple gem, and causing therefore sectarianism, all of these constitute the 9th downfall. So therefore here one should try to abstain from holding such negative and wrong views, thinking there is no Buddha, no Dharma, no Sangha, no point creating merit, as if they are fruitless cause. If one is losing one's faith in the karma and the triple gem, and holding any wrong views knowingly and very disrespectfully, very carelessly, and therefore out of disrespect. If one did this, that constitute the ninth transgression. And then the 10th one is destroying towns. Meaning destroying towns really means doing, one is deliberately destroying people's homes, towns, like engaging in wars, basically, and whether it's their individual homes, or their drinking water, or their road, or the environment. So a bodhisattva should not be a miner. Bodhisattva should not, because if you are into mining, if you are into digging up big holes on the ground, you are destroying the natural sceneries and the towns and so on. So destroying those things out of greed for mines and mineral resources, and then making those places that were otherwise very beautiful nature look very, very bad, like cut up mines that cut up the whole big hole in the ground, and it becomes very, very awkward for people to live around there because of the environmental destruction it causes. So it's not just destroying houses, but all the environment, the waterways, the ecosystem. So Bodhisattva should not engage in such act of destruction of nature, nature. So that constitute. If one does not care about the karmic consequences, saying there is no effect in doing this, and one does not think it is any wrong doing these things, and one is ignorant how much it causes harm to others, but yet carelessly do just that and cause destruction to homes and towns, carelessly and disrespectfully constitute the what we call the tenth transgression out of these 18. So one needs to learn how to, therefore, not directly or indirectly engage in destruction of towns and cities and roadways, waterways, and environment, whichever harms the inhabitants and the beings. Remember, destroying houses, may be doing so out of greed to buy a plot of land, to destroy all the things and do it again. All this kind of thing cause lots of environmental degradation, a lot of distress to people. It takes away the natural beauty of the town, and so one should do minimum harm to the layout of towns and houses and road and rivers and so on. So that's what really is it's talking about. That's the 11th of so the 10th vow. And then the 11th vow is teaching voidness to those who are untrained or not ready to understand it. So this is very important danger of teaching emptiness to those who are premature, those who have heard not enough Dharma, who will have a danger of misinterpreting that emptiness as a nihilism. So that's why it is saying that teaching voidness, one should not teaching emptiness. Even Buddha did not teach emptiness in the first sermon. And the first sermon was all about there is suffering, there is cause, there is a path, there is a cessation. He didn't say there is no suffering, there is no self, there is no origin of suffering. He didn't say any of that. Buddha himself was very skillful in not teaching emptiness to everyone too early. He that's why how dare with the ordinary people go and teach emptiness to the average person who are not trained in the teachings how to do that, and that's why of course most people are not teachers of Dharma anyway. Particularly, it is a warning for people who are teaching Dharma to others, sharing Dharma. Emptiness should not be discussed among the beginners and those who have no faith. They will misinterpret the teachings, and that's why some people think Buddhism is very nihilism and very negative about there is no self, there is no pleasure, there is no happiness, everything is impermanent, that type of thing. They all really think, almost think that they say there is God, there is eternal heaven, and Buddhism says there is no samsara, there is no nirvana, it's all your mind. I mean, it is correct teaching, but for beginners, it is cause of losing faith in the existence of law of karma and reincarnation and existence of triple gem and all of that. So that's why it is important to know that teaching Dharma should be carefully tailored to people before they, so particularly Vajrayana empowerment. It needs Vajrayana empowerment it requires good understanding of all the basics of the teaching. And so that's why this discussing of the Bodhisattva vows is a very necessary merit, so that people actually then have a good stock of merit to understand and realize the wisdom. because you cannot develop the wisdom of emptiness until you have the merit of practicing selflessness by adopting the Bodhisattva's way of life. So with this in mind, one needs to see, take great caution about talking about emptiness. Firstly, one's own understanding of emptiness, if it's merely academic, one shouldn't teach it to other people. One should have the understanding of emptiness reasonably well. You not only know the theoretical jargon about teaching emptiness, but one has to have realization of merit and faith and compassion and bodhicitta with which one is willing to teach the emptiness. And because some people think, oh, this is highest teaching, this highest teaching is very, very difficult to get. There's only limited number. People must pay this much money. People who put a price tag to the teaching on emptiness or Dzogchen or Mahamudra or all those things are very sign of degeneration. The higher the teaching, more free they should be. Why are higher teachings more expensive? Why is it limited? So there are these days people are commodifying, making teachings a commodity or merchandising the teachings. So that's why teaching the ultimate view as the highest master, he's got the realization like no other people. Teaching emptiness should not be promoted very well. Teaching doesn't have to be explained what the teaching is before the teaching itself. The teacher, the very authentic teachers will know what to talk, how to talk, and how much to elaborate, how much not to elaborate. So that's why teaching emptiness to the untrained and uninitiated mind can be disastrous. Even Nagarjuna has written in his work on middle way, if the emptiness is viewed incorrectly, those people with a very small-minded wisdom, very little understanding, small-minded people will be ruined. So that's why the Bodhisattva practitioner, even his or her understanding of emptiness is relatively adequate and good, but one should not be teach that to the untrained because they are not ready to understand it. So teaching emptiness prematurely to others is a transgression. So with this in mind, we'll take a 10-minute break here. Thank you, everyone. Particularly for the translators, this break is necessary. Thank you. We'll have 10-minute break.
Dear friends, several days after these teachings, the final wording of this list of vows in each language will be shared by email with all who registered for these teachings. Also in May 27 and 28, Rinpoche will reach on 46 secondary Bodhisattva vows, same time in the same Zoom. Other details, including about May 20 and May 23 empowerments course, are sent by email to everyone who registered. We will start soon. Yeah, Rinpoche, we can ready to start.
Thank you, Juliana. Yes, we are here to do the rest of the root vows, which I have been explaining. So the 12th one is the diverting others who already started to follow Mayana from working to attain full enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and encouraging them to work merely for their own liberation from suffering. Of course, this one is the discouraging the practitioners who are already have started and have taken Bodhisattva vows and doing Mahayana Buddhist practices and making vow to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. One who has already started and venture on that and dedicating every little effort he or she makes for the benefit of enlightenment of all sentient beings. If one is saying them, oh, now you should change your course of plan because you should work to gain liberation from samsara and attain nirvana for yourself. Of course, that will be completely going against the very spirit of the Mahayana's path. Of course, Bodhisattva should courageously encourage other people, even if they themselves are about to lose their faith. And doing that, we should still encourage them to stay on the path a little bit more skillfully and steadily, rather than saying, oh, now you should give up the Mahayana path and go start doing practices of the lesser vehicle. So, of course, most well-rounded mind will not encourage other people to give up Mahayana's path and to seek one's own liberation from suffering, which is a which is very contradictory to the very spirit of Bodhisattva vows. So that's quite easy to understand. But sometimes, not just easy to understand, but sometimes we might find people are in stress practicing the Dharma, and then and we try to tell them as if they should scale down and work for small purposes, not and give up the big purposes of attaining enlightenment for the benefit of other sentient beings. So one should be cautious not to do this. So that's the 12th vow. 13th is discouraging others from keeping their pratimoksha vows. For example, by saying that the bodhisattvas, saying that for bodhisattva, all actions are pure. Yeah, this is a rather. This number 13 is discouraging other people to keeping their basic pratimoksha vow. Prati means individual, moksha means liberation. Pratimoksha vows are mainly the vows of the Theravada tradition. The triple refuge vows or single one of the five precepts, two or three, or almost all four, or all five precepts. If anybody is, as a layman or laywoman, observing those pratimoksha vows, and one sort of denigrate them and saying these are not necessary to keep those vows, since the bodhisattva practices are all encompassing and it is pure because of bodhicitta motivation, and one doesn't have to honor the basic precepts of pratimoksha. The pratimokshas are seven pratimoksha vows, and four of them are all or renunciate monastic vows, like a novice boy or novice girl, both monk and nun, but novices. And then you have the the fully ordained monk, bhikkhu, and fully ordained nun, bhikkhuni. These four pratimoksha vows are the novice monk and novice vows has at least 36 vows, and then the fully ordained monk and fully ordained nun has over 250 vows, and so that is just the four monastic pratimoksha vow holders. Then there are three non-monastic but pratimoksha vows. One is just the triple refuge, people who took refuge in the triple gem, and then and so not to harm any living beings and so on, and then so people could be taking one of the five precepts, or two, or three, or almost all, or all five of the precepts for life. That is one kind of pratimoksha, le upasaka pratimoksha. Le upasaka pratimoksha has a few subdivisions where the person observes all the five precepts for life. So that's really almost as same as the vow of the monk, but the person may still could be married. So that's a kind of a five precept le upasaka. Then you will have the celibate complete complete upasaka. That's a complete upasaka. Celibate complete upasaka is a person is celibate, but not a monastic, and when he observed all the five precepts for life, five precepts for life, but he is celibate. Yeah, we call it Changchogenye, and then there is the people who only take the eight precepts either for life or just for 24 hours. These are all lay pratimoksha. So where it here mentions the pratimoksha vows, pratimoksha vow holders, so there are many types of pratimoksha vow holders, not just monastics, because every individual has a specially tailored vows. Some people may take refuge vows and then simply say not killing, but they cannot take the vows of other things. So there are such lay specific subdivisions within the lay upasaka vows. So you cannot always think all Buddhists have the same pratimoksha vows. It depending what people took up. So that's why individually tailored to liberate themselves. That's called individual liberation vow pratimoksha. And so if a person, each and every one person who has taken specific pratimoksha vows are tailored in order to help themselves to correct their ways of life or conduct, we should simply let them do, instead of saying that you don't need to do those because you are now Bodhisattva vow holder, all actions you are do is pure because you have Bodhicitta motivation type of thing. So that is a cop out. So that is a transgression. And then the number 14th is causing someone to have incorrect views one might hold about the Theravada. For example, that its meditation technique doesn't liberate from disturbing emotion and attitude. Yeah, this is 14th vow is mainly implanting seed of doubt and incorrect views about people practicing the Theravada method of meditation. One should not implant doubt and indecision in the mind of the people, and their meditation, their discipline, their teachings, saying that these practices are inadequate to liberate themselves from the afflictions and the negative emotions. So that would be regarded as another way of denigrating the lesser vehicle. So Mahayana Bodhisattva vow holder should not have this righteousness to denigrate or to the vows pertaining to the Pratimoksha vows. Then the 15th one is proclaiming false realization of voidness. Yes, this is a very dangerous. Firstly, there is very great difficulty to gain realization of emptiness. The realization doesn't mean intellectual and theoretical knowledge, how to articulate very well. There are lots of people who can really use Buddhist jargon to explain the emptiness, but that doesn't mean they have realization of it. So even if one has a little glimpse of realization, one should not proclaim. So proclaiming that one has realized emptiness is a transgression of Bodhisattva vows. You can see His Holiness Dalai Lama, he says he's hoping by the end of his life to gain the realization of the path of preparation. He never says path of seeing, So that shows that even though His Holiness would have got realization, but he never proclaimed that he has realized emptiness. He says he is praying to realize bodhicitta and emptiness, and he never proclaimed that he has reached thus great bhumis and stages. He still is modestly saying he is still hopeful to be able to realize path of preparation. This is before path of seeing, So that's why the modesty in which His Holiness Dalai Lama teaches shows that no matter how adequate and comprehensive doctrinal understanding of emptiness you may have, almost as you can speak as eloquently as Nagarjuna and debate as gallantly as Chandrakirti or Dharmakirti, but nevertheless one should not proclaim as if one has realized emptiness, even if one has. Even if one has. One who has realized emptiness, he wouldn't say who is he, let alone what he has. So that's a very important point here. And that's the number 15. 16th is accepting any material offering or money that one knows has been or was intended to be owned by a monastic sangha representative, monk or nun, or a gift that was originally intended as an offering to the three jewels. So this is talking about using charity money for the sangha, using those for one's own purposes. So the Bodhisattva meant to give things, his own things to other sentient beings for the sake of sangha, rather than taking any charity money or material objects that belong to thus worthy objects of offering, such as monastics who are renunciate, and or that is a gift to build a temple, or given to make a statue, given the money for the purpose of publishing books, giving books. One should not divert such funds aimed for the monastic and the triple gem for one's own purposes in whatever form or any kinds. So basically this is talking about not embezzling, not sort of misusing the funds for the triple gem and the monastics and the sangha. One should not try to find ways to use it for oneself. Of course, the Bodhisattva should practice giving, even his things, his body, his wealth, his virtue, he should give to others. He shouldn't be taking things from others. So this is talking about how not to use things, because that is in from one point of view theft, and stealing from the sangha, stealing from the material collective wealth of the sangha, wealth intended for the Buddha, the Dharma, sangha, should never accept use, even if people offer. people also offer. One should not always accept what people offer, checking what they're giving, where it came from, and so on. Of course, it is not as it says somewhere that you should accept whatever people gives, but it doesn't mean that you should accept blindly. You should still use your rationale and reasoning. Do I really have the entitlement? Will I digest this? Is it more worthy for its use to build the stupa or paint the Dharma's house or publish books rather than going on a holiday somewhere and then use the money for one's own pleasure? A bodhisattva should be very cautious of using even smallest kind of amount of possessions, materials, money that belong to the charity, that belong to the Sangha, that is intended for the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha. So this is of course, this is a very serious matter if people do that. Not just the transgressions of Bodhisattva vows, it will be illegal as well. Illegal as well, punishable by any even norms of society, let alone the Mahayana Buddhist precepts. Of course, Mahayana Buddhist precept only says things like this when you receive teachings, and then people find a little bit sort of discouraged. Of course, using things that owned by other people for one's own purposes without their consent, taking things that are not given. All of these are fundamental transgressions of the Buddhist precept, let alone Mahayana precepts. And so it's pretty obvious that one need to take caution not to disrespectfully or carelessly, ignorantly engage in misusing such funds for oneself. Then the 17th one is implementing unfair policies and rules in a Dharma community out of anger, hostility, attachment, greed, or other disturbing emotions or biased personal attitude. So this is talking about not to become dictatorial, not to use very rigid and very punitive policies, particularly in the Dharma community when out of anger. Some people straight away want to bring drastic measures, saying, "Oh, you must leave within 24 hours." They're saying such things is not Buddhist, let alone Mahayanist. We should still try to find people who are homeless, people who don't have somewhere to go, and help them rather than try to kick them out. So this is talking about implementing unfair policies in a Dharma community out of anger, or out of hostility, or out of attachment, or out of greed, or other things like jealousy, or whatever negativities one happen to be seized by. For example, depriving material support for those who are engaged in secluded meditation such as samatha compared to those who are merely reciting, doing rituals. Yeah, this is talking about being biased. You are more biased. You are, instead of supporting people doing retreats, you are siphoning the funds for people who are doing academic studies. So almost like being biased against meditators, meditation. Those who are in the caves, say, why give money to those who are doing nothing in the caves? We should send these people to school and or they can study texts and rituals and that sort of thing. So this is talking about not being able to look and consider squarely what is more appropriate, what is not appropriate. So it doesn't mean that one should not use the money for the meditators, but use it for people's study. or reciting the text, or they all together they try to recite 100,000 praise to 21 taras, and maybe one is willing to give money for that, but not for the genuine ascetics whose food we are only arranging. So this is talking about not becoming negligent of those who do really hard in the caves, in the monasteries, in the caves and the hermitages, where they're actually doing the practice with great kind of effort. So one shouldn't deprive such material support. Um, yeah, those who are engaged in very secluded, solitary meditation retreat, compared to those who are merely reciting the text. Some people are quite willing to spend a couple thousand just to give people reading the text as a merit of reading those texts. But they don't want to do those who are silently and quietly doing retreat in the mountains, doing meditations. So one's way of directing funds has to be taken very seriously. Then 18th and last is giving up aspiring and engaging bodhicitta. Now this is of course last of the 18 vows, because if you give up wishing bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, because if we have giving up wishing bodhicitta, then that's already giving up engaging bodhicitta, because if there is no wish you wouldn't engage. So that's why, of course, that would be the total transgression of bodhisattva vow. So that's why, as I mentioned, that our bodhisattva practitioner, vow practitioner, always renew the bodhisattva vows, saying, "O gurus, O Buddhas, O bodhisattvas, please listen to me. From now onwards, from my depth of my heart, I will, just as the past Buddhas developed the wishing enlightenment thought, and then practice the engaging enlightenment thought, and practice stage by stage, following the trainings of all the Buddhas and their successors. I too will do, and for the sake of all living beings, cultivate the aspirational bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta, exactly as the Buddha Shakyamuni for many countless lives practiced as a bodhisattva and ultimately attain enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. May I too be able to follow those examples. So one need to repeat those couple of verses. And by the way, on the last night, on the 28th, is 27th, isn't it? I will do a short bodhisattva vow, because I've been insisted so much that we do. And so because usually whenever I do empowerment, people always receive the bodhisattva vows. Although there is exclusive bodhisattva vow ceremony, but they are both a very lengthy and ritual. There's a lot of ritual preparation requirement, and also it is best it is performed in person. But here, since we are doing all the teachings on Zoom and on virtual situation, I don't think that all the rituals can be comprehensively conducted. So therefore, we will use Shanti Deva's half a dozen verses in taking the Bodhisattva vows and then honoring that. So I will be able to select those verses, and then you will receive through Sakya Friends as you register the next weekend, the weekend afterwards. Not this. Today is anyway. Let me not mention which weekend date is not quite clear in my mind just yet, but you will all know when that it is. And so, about after finishing explaining the rest of the 46 secondary vows. The 46 secondary vows are very, very detailed laid out. Each of the 46 are divided up among the 6 parameters, and then remaining 18 analogies we discuss, which we haven't discussed, are all to do with the analogies to be remembered, how to guard the precepts pertaining to generosity and so on. So when we have finished all of the explanation of the 46 secondary vows, then on that last evening, at the end of the second part of the evening, I will do the Bodhisattva vows, because it is also auspicious, because it is in Saga Dawa. Saga Dawa is an auspicious month celebrating Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing away nirvana, according to the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So, for instance, after 5 days, then like today is Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe about on Friday, Friday starts the beginning of Saga Dawa. So it will be meritorious for all of us, not only to explain the Bodhisattva vows, comprehend them, but actually renew the Bodhisattva vows with a brief ceremony, simple one, very much similar to those that His Holiness Dalai Lama these days conduct. And because of people of like each of you are very, very keen to listen to the explanation of Bodhisattva vows, then you might as well take the Bodhisattva vow knowingly and consciously, and to say, yes, I will. This Bodhisattva vow is beautiful because you're not committing to with one person for the rest of life type of thing, Even that most people don't continue. They suffer. They're not able to continue. You say, I will, but then people don't. The Bodhisattva vow is very moving to say that you're going to follow the noble examples of the past Buddhas and trained accordingly by emulating their examples for no other than benefit of all sentient beings, so that they become freed and liberated into the state of ultimate enlightenment. So generally speaking, when you believe in bodhicitta practice, you're doing that every day. But it's very important consciously how you can't conduct a bodhisattva vow ceremony in the very beginning, then explain then after they have taken. You rather explain what vows they are before you actually take them. So that's why I didn't want to do a lengthy bodhisattva ceremony, vow ceremony at the beginning, and without people knowing what the vows are. And ideally, all Vajrayana practitioners should receive these teachings and know what the bodhisattva vows are, and then if they choose to, then actually they take. And then when they take, if it coincides with the Saga Dawa, and so on, it's even more auspicious. So it is a very wonderful thing that so many of you are listening to the discourse on the nitty-gritty details of the Bodhisattva vows, and therefore one should always renew. I will, help sentient beings. I will never give up helping sentient beings. No matter what difficulties I go through, so be it. I will never, reject or renounce or give back the Bodhisattva vows. And your Bodhisattva vows, even though it's good to perform a ceremony like that, you can actually renew it yourself each day, calling the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, because all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have no discrimination. As long as you sincerely wish and pray and think they are right before you as a witness, and then you really repeat the Bodhisattva vows and solemnly say, I agree and I do in your heart, and then did that, then Bodhisattva vow, relative Bodhisattva vows can be received that way. Ultimate Bodhisattva Bodhicitta cannot be solemnized through ceremonies. So that has to be realized only through your own practice and meditation of it. So with this in mind, we need to become acquainted with the 18 root Bodhisattva vows, as well as the 46 Bodhisattva vows, which are then subdivided into three parts, Bodhisattva, prohibitive Bodhisattva vows, and prescriptive Bodhisattva vows, and then the benevolent Bodhisattva vows. So all the six paramitas, each of the six paramitas has prohibitive Bodhisattva vows of generosity, prescriptive Bodhisattva vows of generosity, as well as benevolent Bodhisattva vows. And that goes same with the self-discipline and patience and diligence, meditation, and the transcendental wisdom. So therefore, it is a great honor for me to be able to explain these 18 root downfalls first, and so that we prevent, we are by having heard what constitutes the downfall, we should make sure that we don't forget to guard and keep and protect the Bodhisattva vows, on top of any other Pratimoksha vows you might have. And then we should always feel completely guarded, and we are always armored. Our mind and body and the words are all armored, so that they would not say or do or think things that are harmful for oneself and to others, but instead one will deliberately renew one's bodhicitta vows, not only words and deeds, but right in from the sincere, conscious intention that one must have in order to guard. Because if one is, again, Nagarjuna said, the blissful one or heedful one is blissful, and those who are heedless is full of sorrow. So the reason we have sorrow is because we are so selfish. The reason we can be devoid of sorrow and have the bliss of practicing selflessness, kindness, and generosity to others, will always find a joy that never diminishes. Because our joy comes from discovering bodhicitta. And even they said that in the Lojong teachings, that if people remember bodhicitta before they die, they will not be lost in the bardo. It's far better to remember bodhicitta before death, if you can't remember even the guru. From the Mahayanist point of view, it's better to remember bodhicitta than guru. What's the point of remembering a big nose guru, or small nose guru, or guru with a bald head, and what's the point of it? You should, if you remember guru, you should remember bodhicitta, the guru's gift. Why remember the guru? His gift is the most important one. So if you don't forget the bodhicitta, you will remember guru automatically. And so Mahayanas would argue that you should learn to remember bodhicitta. If you have a bodhicitta, then you practice the relative bodhicitta for the sake of other sentient beings. For the sake of yourself, you're always abiding in the ultimate bodhicitta. So therefore, relative bodhicitta is to work with other sentient beings, because you have to relate to them as we have to. But ultimately yourself, you always practice ultimate bodhicitta of selflessness, of emptiness of self. And then have compassion and loving kindness to those who lack this realization, and then take pity and empathize how they are lost in the mud pool of samsara. And then you do not judge and throw stones at them, but rather empathize and send loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta prayers all the time. So the bodhicitta prayer and wishes and the words are always on your lips, because you are so blessed and fortunate to remember Bodhicitta. And I know some Buddhists in the West, or maybe in the East particularly, go bring some relics from Asia and then take a tour around the world and try to bring many people to pay respect, to make offerings, and that there's the physical remains of the relics of some Buddhas and some great teachers. But I regard Bodhicitta is the highest relic, most precious relic, the relic that doesn't have to be guarded inside a casket and then locked away, only put out once a year, that kind of thing. Bodhicitta is most safest, most universally appealing form of the vow. So, talking and thinking how to guard this discipline of discipline, bodhicitta, is of course most precious thing. So therefore, each and every one of our effort in listening, translating, and thinking about the meaning, and comparing your notes, and reflecting on their meaning, and vowing to undertake them, these things are already the blessings of bodhicitta. Your consciousness will never fall in hell and the lower realms if you remember bodhicitta. And in order for us to fittingly be able to remember and then employ and implement bodhicitta activities, next time when somebody really gives you a hard time, you straight away remember how to practice bodhicitta and the perfection of patience, for instance. You will not nag and complain about the person's behavior and try to seek authority to punish them, and then try to throw them away. All these kind of worldly activities you will not resort to anymore. You instead feel compassion and forgiveness to the person, and then practice bodhicitta by engaging your generosity with them, engaging your discipline to restrain your aggression, and so on. All of these things fall in place, and you want to miss the mark. And the bodhicitta is very good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, and there's never a time that it is not good. So therefore, it is great opportunity to harness, to strengthen your bodhicitta vows. You don't have to really worry too much about nitty-gritty commitment or practice of other things. You remember bodhicitta. Even though people read the scriptures, they spend days in the retreat hut reciting thousands of mantras, but they have no bodhicitta motivation. And then that's why they don't have any realizations. They did only number, and they did lots of volumes of days and things, but their heart was completely distracted. They suffer attention deficit of bodhicitta. If you have bodhicitta and then you do prostration, you do very simple practices, even small practices has huge meanings because of the presence of bodhicitta. And the presence of the bodhicitta means first you have to make vow to have them, keep them, guard them, and implement them. You can't guard, implement something if you don't have it. So we should try to, even the meditation, even the study, even the discipline you observe, all of this is so that we actually come to realize bodhicitta and employ that in action and words and thoughts, and even at the moment of death we will remember bodhicitta, and wherever you're going to go, you probably be found a rebirth in a noble family who have no resistance for you to practice Dharma, but they also will greatly support you. So you can see having bodhicitta is not just for this life, not just for the body, not just for this year even, but for the sake of others, for the sake of my mind stream. And that kind of holistic view greatly will boost and consolidate the need to understand these Bodhisattva vows and then try to avoid them being transgressed at all costs. But instead, you should guard it and promote it, practice it, and explain the Bodhisattva vows. All of these are a very, very conducive way to benefit oneself and all sentient beings. So, with this in mind, we have concluded the teachings on the 18 root vows of the Bodhisattva's vows, as well as the really important remarks how not to forget bodhicitta and try to renew and remember the word bodhicitta. Even you can't remember the whole words, just say remember bodhicitta. If you remember bodhicitta, it will straight away lit you up and bring you in a kind of many levels of higher mind than ordinary gross physical body allows you to. So therefore, bodhicitta is a wonderful empowerment. But it doesn't have the empowerment, ringing the bell, playing music, and all of that. But when you remember and when you hear bodhicitta teachings, and when you become very, very enthused, you are there vowing to practice that yourself. That's the empowerment of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta empowerment happens when you receive the teachings. Knowledge is very powerful, but the knowledge without practice, implementation will not be very powerful. So once you start to employ the existence of bodhicitta intention and the right skillful way to speak to other people, when you're starting to do that, the benefit will be incredible. It is inestimable. If the material wealth, if there was a material kind of wealth that is comparable to any material wealth, they say that even our whole world will be too small to accommodate the actual value of the preciousness of the bodhicitta. So therefore, it's very pleasing for me to see all of you so keen and listen and partake in this kind of teaching through the Zoom, because I know that you all have good reserve of merit from your this life and the life before that, and now you realize why you were drawn to the Buddha. Previously, you thought was you were drawn to the Buddhist art. You thought you were drawn to Buddhist meditation or chanting or culture or food or whatever it is. But wait a minute, you're missing the point. If you really hearing something, you must listen to the tune of bodhicitta. And when you're starting to think bodhicitta every day, you realize how much more beautiful your mind is, how much beautiful your eyes see the good in everything, how much you can hear the good in everything you otherwise don't understand and misunderstand. All will be changed. Your senses, your eyes, your hearing, all will be restored. Even you have terrible sicknesses that are many years old and maybe in terminal, can be healed and cured, but if you meditate on bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is the most important one, and if one were to observe the necessary guidelines how to do that, of course you are many times armed to do just that. So with this in mind, we will conclude here, everyone. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for all our dedicated translators taking your time to help to interpret these teachings. Doing interpretation, doing organizing, all these are Dharma activities. And for me to come on Zoom on one session teaching is of course a small effort. My side is the smallest effort. But all of your efforts is very good, because some of you may not even come from any Buddhist background. And for you to realize how true the Dharma is, how pertinent bodhicitta is, and coming to these kind of teachings and sharing is a remarkable sign of the growth happening towards the inevitable enlightenment of yourself. And then the benefit to all sentient beings will come naturally if you have bodhicitta anyway. So that's why it is matter of great joy and pride and dignity and confidence. Once you have bodhicitta, you will not be harmed by others, you will not be harmed by spirits, you will be protected and guarded by those spirits. And even you, so there are uncountable many lists of the virtues of practicing Mahayana teachings and upholding the Bodhisattva vows. So thank you very much, everyone. So I leave you to it, to think. The notes are carefully edited. Thank you for the Sakya Friends, and then I'll see you on another occasion. Thank you very much.